In this year's battle for sprinting supremacy, the score is now Robbie McEwen 2 and Tom Bonan nothing. Yesterday, in another chaotic sprint finish, Robbie McEwen emerged in the melee to claim another win in this year's Tour, and he reclaimed the green jersey. While the Aussie seems to have the upper hand on stage wins, it's the Belgian Bonan who is the true leader of the Tour. He sits pretty in yellow. Today, the two will surely be at it again on the open flat roads of France in the battle for the green jersey. But more importantly, the yellow is also at stake. Stage 5 of the 2006 Tour de France is next on OLN. Yes, 45 as early as the year 275. The Tour de France was last here in Beauvais in 1978. That was a long time ago. Paul Sherwen was actually a competitor in the race at that time. Well, now he sat alongside me. Hi, everybody. Phil Liggett with Paul Sherwen. And that's true, Paul. It was a team time trial, wasn't it?
It was a team time trial, a very long team time trial. In fact, it was a team time trial of 150 kilometres. Oh, I wouldn't want to do that again.
All right. Well, while the competitors who are really fancying themselves for winning this race in Paris are resting easy in the field in this opening week, they're waiting for the time trial at the weekend. This has become a battle, really, between two men. Tom Bonan and Robbie McEwen. This is how they featured every day.
Well, if you have a look at the performances, McEwen didn't do a very good prologue, but since then he's had a second and 2 victories. Well, Bonan has been very close and very consistent. 12th place, 13th place, and the last 3 stages, 2nd, 4th and 4th. That's where he's got himself the time bonuses, but at the end of the day, Robbie McEwen's the fastest.
Yes, he is, and the green jersey signifies that. For the most consistent daily finisher, he leads this race on points. Tom Bonan, of course, leads the race on time. He gets to wear the yellow jersey. But this is the competition we're concentrating on. Robbie McEwen has 100 points, Tom Bonan 89. Down the bottom there, 5th place Thor Hushovd, relegated yesterday from 4th place to 148. He lost himself 20 points, and that could be critical as we go towards Paris.
He's got to look for points out on the course. There are 3 intermediate sprint points again today at Les Andelys, at Saint-Georges-de-Vièvre and Pont-l'Évêque, where the riders can get 6, 4 and 2 points for the first 3 across the line. But again, like Robbie McEwen knows, the big points are all on the finish line. 35 points for the first man to cross the line, 22 points for 5th, and then going from 6th down to 25th place, just between 20 and a single point at the end.
Well, before we get to the live action, as always, let's have a look how the race started today. 172 riders rolling out. The yellow jersey there being worn by Tom Bonan by that single second ahead of the Australian time trial champion. Having a chat here with arch rival Robbie McEwen. McEwen, by the way, speaks fluent Flemish, which is the language of the Flanders area of Belgium. There was Pino in the polka dot jersey. The man still smarting from that relegation yesterday, Thor Hushovd. And I must say, I think I'm in sympathy with him. It's been a very harsh decision by the judges. Anyway, here's the start now. 0 kilometres, 225 to go. And then 10 kilometres down the road, the polka dot jersey, perfect lead out by his teammates, gets maximum points here, which keeps him in the lead in this competition. He's riding it very intelligently, and they might lead this for a few days yet. Well, there was a number of attacks, of course. In the end, 2 riders have got clear of the field. Samuel Dumoulin, he's in the lead here, smallest rider in the race, by the way, and Bjorn Schroeder. They were clear at the next sprint, which came at Les Andelys at 66 kilometres, leading here, by the way, by 10 minutes. And it was Van Summeren who swept up the 3rd place sprint. On to climb 2, the Col du Bouquet, 109 kilometres, and Dumoulin again ahead of Schroeder. But there was a sprint for 3rd place, not surprisingly, and it was Fabien Weckmann getting one over on the race leader of the King of the Mountains, Jérôme Perrault. So there we are. That's up to date on the action so far today. Now, as you can see, goodness me, the rain is coming down for the first time on this year's Tour de France. We are precisely, Paul, 100 kilometres from the line.
Yes, very strange weather conditions. Obviously a storm out on the course because the clouds are not on the finish line at all. The sky is blue, and for these riders it will come as somewhat of a shock. 73 degrees Fahrenheit out on the course. Slight west-northwesterly winds of 6 miles an hour, but they are picking up as the riders are getting towards the coastline and the finishing town of Caen. And that's not a surprise because the wind is coming in off the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, it is very hot and humid, so I think the rain actually at this moment in time be quite welcomed by the riders as they continue. And remember, Stuart O'Grady, injured with that fractured number 4 vertebrae, got through yesterday and has started again today. He really is a tough guy, and let's hope he gets to feel a little bit better as the days wear on. It's not so much the fractured bone that's hurting, but the surrounding muscle tissue around the back of his body there. So let's hope it works out. Well, these two guys got away today at around about 20 kilometres. There were a number of them. The rest fell back. These two stayed persistent, and they're now clear. The funny thing is, Paul, that Samuel Dumoulin, I'm looking at him here, he just loves racing to Normandy.
He's always seemed to ride very well in this part of the world. Riders get motivated for different races, different areas, and once they seem to go back into that area, it really does boost the morale. Dumoulin has been a professional since 2002. He's won 10 races throughout his career, but this year, in the early part of the year, he actually won a race here called the Route d'Adélie, which is not too far away from where the race goes this afternoon. He's an aggressive rider. We've seen him in the past actually win stages of races like the Dauphiné Libéré as well. But this is what the riders don't like, and this is when we've seen a lot of accidents happening in the start. It's now more than important to ride in the first 10 or 15 places.
And take a look at the rain now. We can't believe this. We're commentating, of course, on the finishing line in Caen. It's lovely and warm and sunny. There's a little tour update for you. It doesn't mention the rain, of course, but there are 176 riders on the start line last Saturday. We've lost 4 along the way through crashes and sickness. 13 of the 20 teams of 9 riders per team are still there with all of their riders intact.
Well, this is definitely a bit of a cloud burst because it's actually only isolated where the riders seem to be, because the leading 2 riders, in fact, around about 8 minutes 40 seconds ahead, seem to have ridden out of this cloud burst, and they'll be happy to know that it's actually very clear and fine at the finish.
They will. It won't be in it too long, but it is very, very heavy at the moment. Fortunately, the roads in this part of France were still in the department of the Eure. They're just entering it actually after the Seine-Maritime. So they're catching a little bit of the rain, I think, probably coming in off the North Sea, which is off to their right shoulder. And hopefully they'll ride away from it as they head down towards the finishing line today.
Once again, same scenario, exactly the same scenario as almost every stage of the race so far. The riders are looking for a small breakaway early on, the breakaway taking away the bonus time and points out on the course. And then, of course, Team Quick-Step of Tom Boonen on the front, chasing them all down.
Time. Well, we're in the rain for the first time on the roads of the Tour de France. We're up in northern France. We're heading out west today towards the finish on the beaches at Caen, just outside the horse trotting track. There's 2 riders ahead, 8 minutes 24 seconds. Sounds a lot, but it was at one stage up to 12 minutes. So they are, in fact, being caught pretty quickly today. Steady tempo riding being done here by Tom Boonen's Quick-Step team. And Boonen, of course, racing to try and get his hands on the green jersey held by Robbie McEwen, but also consolidate his overall lead in the Tour de France because he wears yellow. Became yesterday the first rider to defend that lead. There's the route for you. We're not too far above sea level, are we, in this region? But the area in the Normandy department is very undulating all the time. It's great roads for cycle racing. You just have to be a strong man rather than a particular specialist at any type of the disciplines. And this young man here is only small. He's the smallest rider in the race. Not this one. We've gone in the wrong one, but the other one, Samuel Dumoulin. We're looking here at Bjorn Schode. It's his first Tour de France for Bjorn. It's the 4th Tour de France, in fact, for little Samuel Dumoulin. They're away by 8 minutes 26. Now, the man of the moment is the Aussie. They call him the Pimpernel back home in Australia. Well, here he is talking at the start this morning with Frankie Andreu.
Tour was relegated, and you've experienced that before. How does that change your outlook when you were relegated towards the sprints, and how do you think that changes Tour's kind of thoughts towards the sprints?
I've said it before, and I said it last year when it happened to me. You miss one day of getting points, you can maybe get it back, but if you miss 2, then you're in real trouble. And Tour didn't score in Valkenburg, neither did I. But then he hasn't scored one single point yesterday with disqualification. So, you know, he's going to have a huge fight on his hands to be able to come back. But you know, there's a lot of flat stages to come and a lot can happen. So he's still not out of it. Last year, there weren't quite as many flat stages to go when I had that happen and then had a crash. So he's not totally out of it yet, but for him, that's a big blow.
You're in green jersey. Are you looking for yellow? And also, you didn't change to the green bike.
No, I've got a green bike, but I've got this one running pretty well, so I'm going to stay on this one. But I'm not really thinking about yellow. I actually, looking at the math, I could have done it yesterday if in Valkenburg I'd just gone with the group that rode past me when I sat up. Like I was dropped, so I wasn't going to make it back into the first little peloton there. So I just totally sat up and let a little group ride past me, and if I'd stayed with them, I would have been 12 seconds quicker. I'd be in yellow, but it's maybe in our situation with Evans for the GC, it wouldn't be an ideal situation for us to have yellow and to have that pressure of maybe having to defend it and, you know, offer up more guys than we want to. So although it would be nice, it's better that somebody else has it.
What's your personal...
All smiles at the moment, Robbie McEwen. In fact, he's 12 seconds off the outright yellow jersey lead of this race. He has had the yellow jersey before for the first time last year. And, you know, a win today with a 20-second win bonus, if Bowen isn't right behind him in second place, then he will, in fact, lose his yellow jersey to Robbie McEwen. But that's for later on, I think. There's the gap at 8:25. Well, McEwen has the possibility, Paul, of taking that yellow jersey. Do you think he can do it today?
I think he will, but I think Tom Bonen has actually ridden a very sensible tactical race, allowing those two riders to go clear, because that way he doesn't have to battle with Robbie McEwen for the time bonus sprint points out on the route. McEwen is definitely the fastest rider, but every now and again somebody has to make a mistake. The rider's now approaching the next climb of the day at the Côte de Saint-Grégoire de Vièvre. It's only a fourth category climb. It's about 3.2 kilometers in length at the top. It's a maximum altitude of 153 meters, not very much when you think about the big mountains to come, and the average gradient not very much at 3.4%.
Just on 500 feet, and that really takes in the whole of the region around here, but they can come rather monotonously often, these little climbs in this region. Not all count for the King of the Mountains competition. There'll be no challenge for this one. I'm a little bit surprised that Dumoulin hasn't allowed Bjorn Schroeder to pass over any of the lines so far in these extra competitions. He didn't allow it in the sprint at Les Andelys, and he didn't allow it on the climb just down the road, the Côte de Bouquet. Maybe he'll let him go up there and win something today, because this is his first big Tour de France. We've seen it all week. Riders in their first tour taking the tentative, which is good to see. It means they're not afraid of what's to come. The management have to control often the enthusiasm of first-time riders in the Tour, because they have to imagine these youngsters still have to be firing in 3 weeks' time.
Well, that's very important, Phil, because in the last week of racing, that's when the body really starts to change. That's when physiologically it gets very much more difficult than any other race that these riders participate in during the year. It's a tough event, up to 10 days, but then in the last week, and especially with the last week of this year's Tour, 3 very difficult days in the Alps, followed by that very long time trial on the Saturday before the race gets up to Paris. You need to have some gas left in the tank.
Well, the men who are not saving a lot of gas in the tank right now are on the front of that peloton. They are the teammates of the race leader, Tom Bonen. It's their job to set the pace. That's the board the riders see. A kilometre to go, just 0.6 of a mile to the top of the climb. They're not racing each other at this moment. They're racing the common enemy of the main field behind. The gap is slowly coming down, though. 8 minutes, 11 seconds. It was at one stage up to 12 minutes. And only 56.7 miles left to ride at the moment.
Well, the main field very attentive, actually, in the first 15 or 20 kilometres, because after about 7 kilometres, a group of 8 riders got off the front, and the main field thought, that's a little bit too dangerous, allowing too many men to get clear. They closed that down very rapidly and then allowed a 2-man breakaway to get off the front, because in the minds of the peloton, allowing 2 riders a bit of freedom means that they will tire out a lot quicker than a group of 8 riders, and therefore giving them much more chance to put them back into the fold towards the end and give the sprinters another chance to regale us.
Little Sam Dumoulin here. He's the best place of the two of them in the overall classification. Just under 4 minutes behind, lost over the ride since last Saturday to Tom Bonen. So at the moment with the lead of 8, he's 4 minutes to the good, but this will change, of course. bit early to dream of a yellow jersey at the end of the race. But Schroeder himself in his first tour turned pro back in 2003, and he's had 4 small wins as a pro, but it's his first chance he's got on a big team. So before this, he wasn't on a pro tour team. And look at the crowd here now. Of course, we've come straight out of that rain. I'm not too sure the riders really in the breakaway. They were riding 8 or 9 minutes ahead. They really haven't got the tremendous squall that hit the main field. So they're still nice and dry here. Spectators will hope it stays that way, because I don't see too many rain capes amongst the onlookers on the road to Caen today. These two, little friendly chat, keep working together. They'll be friendly enough for a while. All right, well, let's remind us the Tour de France is with us now right through to its end on the 23rd of July. Tonight, tune in as OLN has its enhanced coverage of the Tour de France of today's Stage 5. Craig Hummel will bring us a look at the history of our finish line town, which is Caen, and what a history, plus more interviews with the Americans. The primetime show begins at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's 9 p.m. Pacific. And of course, daily coverage of the 2006 Tour de France is only here on OLN. We are live as we speak. So as you look at the beauty around the department, we are racing into the department of Calvados now, which makes some of the finest cognac in the world, which they're very proud of as we go towards the finish in Caen. 225 kilometres, the third longest stage of the Tour de France, is underway. The main field are racing for the edge of the clouds and hoping at the other end of the rainbow there might be 2 leaders. We'll take a break. Welcome back, and just as you return, the man being pushed into the fray here is Dave Zabriskie of Team CSC, the American rider from Utah. He's had a back wheel flat tyre, and he's trying to just sort out the gears now. It was a very, very quick, fast change there by the CSC mechanic. So as you can see ahead is the convoy of cars. It won't be a problem to get back in. And it looks like Graham Watson is the photographer on the back of that motorbike, making sure that he's got the picture. And let's have a look back. This is how it happened. And look at this. This is a cool operation for you. The rain has stopped, so Dave has taken the chance to take his rain jacket off. The mechanic just gets on with his job. Dave, no panic. He just made sure he got the weight off the back of that bicycle, and on you go. And that's the way you do a bike change. You don't start shouting and screaming at the mechanic. No panic at all. At the same time, it looks as though Bjarne Riis is coming up to talk to Dave here. He's the manager of the CSC squad. And there's no panic at all, because they're in the convoy now, so you can just pedal up to the race when you like. But what's going on now? Jersey's undone completely. There's a problem with the radio, I would think. This is the little radio, chance to see it, that listen to the orders coming from the team car, and I would think that the battery has probably run out, because Zabriskie obviously called for help there and didn't get it, so maybe the battery was down. Maybe flooded with water, and there's another puncture ahead. Life's getting a bit busy at the back of the Tour de France. T-Mobile rider having a wheel change. Interestingly, that's a back tyre as well. If Dave can hurry up, he'll have a partner to go back up to the peloton. Let's get back up to the front while they're chasing on. And a lot of action here now as they chase for the top of the Côte de Saint-Grégoire, and Pinot and Weckman are locking swords again here. Well, this is the battle, Paul, for the top of the climb of the Côte de Saint-Grégoire. First and second have gone, of course, with the boys at the front, but the big action here. Jérôme Pinot, the leader with the polka dot jersey. The lead-out boys are with him. Looks like he might get revenge here.
Well, this is Laurent Brochard on the front, making the big lead out there in second position. You can just see Pinot just waiting. Not a very experienced professional rider, but with the dedication and the help from his team here, he just wants to keep the points. He's going to get challenged there by De La Fuente, but I think Jérôme Pinot this afternoon and this week has got the bit between the teeth, because he knows keep getting a few points, he could keep the lead in this competition, Phil, all the way down to the Pyrenees.
It's interesting, you know, we're so early away from the big mountains, but this has been a very good little race. This Pinot has done well. He's a solid leader at the moment. Another point in the bag, not much when you get 20 points in one grab on a mountain, but De La Fuente and Weckman are real challenges in this competition.
They will fight all the way down to the Pyrenees and just hope that Pinot makes a mistake. There's confirmation. You see Schroeder getting maximum 3 points, Dumoulin 2, Pinot getting 1 point. But as long as Pinot keeps finishing in front of De La Fuente and Weckman, he will feel comfortable.
If you're very content as he heads around France. Very important, the Frenchman wears a leader's jersey in the Tour de France. Keeps the home interest hopes a little bit alive. although Jérôme Pinault will find the big mountains of the Pyrenees, which are looming closer every day. We get to them in the middle of next week. I don't think he'll be challenging too much then. So 2 riders clear, and now we're down to just 7 minutes for the breakaway, and they're smiling. That's nice. So these are the 2 leaders. De La Fuente, very popular rider in his first Tour de France. On the right for Sonia Duval here. Well, let's continue our interest in the Saab Watch and Win sweepstakes. Don't forget to log on to olntv.com, fly to the finish, and every day during the tour it's your chance to win a Saab and other prizes. There's the watchword today. It is Hincapie. As we've just gone past there, the next sprint point there, it looked like, which comes at Saint-Georges-de-Vièvre. Still a little bit of a way down the road as they continue to chat here. No effort to stay away from the field, and the field not interested in pulling them back either. Well, there's still, let me just see, there's still one more climb on the course today, so Jérôme Pinault is certain to keep his lead in the King of the Mountains. Here come the boys in blue, the teammates of Tom Boonen, back in the driving seat to try and get those 2 riders back as they leave Saint-Grégoire-de-Vièvre, heading for a sprint just down the road. McEwen and Boonen, they're all set to cross swords again as we race towards the end of today's stage of the Tour de France. We've tasted the wet, now we'll taste the sun when you get back. Welcome back, and as you rejoin us, we're watching an attack here at Saint-Georges-de-Vièvre by Johan van Summeren, the Belgian rider on the same team as Robin McEwen. His plan here is to steal the green jersey points for 3rd place at the sprint. Remember, the 2 leaders are ahead and gone through, and they're out of contention for the green jersey. And the reason here, it stops Robin McEwen sprinting for the points. It also takes any points possibility away from Tom Boonen. A perfect job by a team man. He doesn't want the points personally, but he's stopping anybody else getting them. And there's no reaction from the field, because to chase him simply requires too much energy at this stage of the Tour de France. Now Schroeder has taken the first points, and Dumoulin got the second bunch of points, 6, 4 and 2, and this should be the other one which will give him 2 points. That's as we've heard it on race radio, but he's got a little way to go. So as he continues to copy as we race towards the line now, as we watch Van Summeren doing a very good job here of holding off the field. So there's the peloton reacting. Quick-Step are now on the way to chase him down. I don't think they'll catch him though. Anyway, there was a team time trial in this area a long time ago, and that's why we're going to have Lance on the team time trial right now.
Team time trial is I think many times that the organizers of the tour, just their brains go on hibernate. Why take out one of the public's favorite events? I mean, the event that you truly get to see the cohesiveness and the toughness and the strength of a team, just the technical aspect of it, just watching it, 9 guys rolling together, all the Zoot equipment, all the fancy clothes, everything there. I mean, people loved it. So let's take it out.
Yes, people did love it. Today's Lance On, brought to you by American Century Investments and mutual funds and institutional money management for more than 45 years. So no team time trial in this year's Tour de France, but there's plenty of riders prepared to race in this year's Tour de France. There is the banner up ahead, and Johan van Summeren is about to steal the points for himself. Well, Paul, it doesn't matter for Van Summeren, but he stopped Tom Boonen gaining any green jersey points, so it's victory for De Vietem and Lotto.
I think it's pretty much a status quo. Both teams not really wanting to have to battle it out at the intermediate points, because after all, they're looking at a 2-point acquisition here or a 2-second time bonus. For Team Quick-Step, they're pretty happy, because then Tom Boonen doesn't have to worry about Michael Rogers, who's only 1 second behind him in the overall standings. So it makes everybody, I think, just a little bit more relaxed.
Well, very early on today at the first sprint, Michael Rogers did try to snatch a single second, 2 seconds rather, to get 3rd place. And I think everybody sat up when he did that, because he finished 4th. Had he finished 3rd, he would have actually taken over the race lead.
Yep, and don't worry, because I'm sure he will try again. There is another final sprint point at around about 50 kilometers to go at the small town of Pont-l'Évêque, and that's why they're going to have to be very attentive. This is the King of the Mountains leader, Jérôme Pinault.
It's got a good lead. It's got about an 8-point lead at the moment in the competition ahead of De La Fuente. We saw De La Fuente tried to take him on there, but 3 riders pulling away in that competition at the moment. There's the result of the sprint. Dumoulin was the man over the top first from Schroeder, Van Summeren in second place today. So one more time bonus sprint still to come. And so that means that, and I think by then, which comes at 50 kilometers to go, when we get down to Pont-l'Évêque, I think the race might well be all together as we see Van Summeren go back into the bunch. All the boys look at him, a little bit of a wry smile from one Belgian to another. Advantage McEwen at that stage, I would say.
Even
look at Tom Bonen, he's having a laugh, yeah. Yep.
Thanks very much, mates. Get back into the main field, and we'll keep the pressure on at the front end. A nice look at Tom Bonen's bike there, by the way. You see he's a different colour bike to the rest of the team. That bike is completely white and emblazoned with the rainbow stripes to indicate that he's the world champion from last year. And a number of riders have had special bikes delivered to them in the Tour de France this year. Gilberto Simoni, the winner of the Giro d'Italia, if you ever get a chance to see him, and I actually haven't seen him since the start of the race, is actually riding a pink bicycle to denote the wins that he had in the Giro. And David Miller has a bicycle with, in fact, the Eiffel Tower on it. I wonder if that's because he wants to get there.
I've got a pair of sneakers with the Eiffel Tower on. Oh, well, there's some people taking time out now to watch the Tour go by. As we look down in the pack here, the field now taking a little bit of a rest again. Remember, Van Summeren working well in the pay of Robin McEwen today. I wonder what will happen when we get to the finish. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back to the roads of the Tour de France today. Around about 77 kilometers still to ride. The beauty of the region of Calvados. This is the Ancon, where we're going, is the capital of this region. We're heading to the shores of the North Sea today, where the sun is shining. The riders have had a little bit of a soaking en route, and the smallest man in the race is scurrying along in the hope he can reach the shoreline first. Taking with him Bjorn Schroeder. They got away at 12 miles in, 20 kilometers in, and they've held a very high average speed today, 25.7 kilometers an hour, miles an hour, rather 41.4 kilometers an hour. That's a pretty high pace by just 2 men. As you can see, the sun is out just now with the shadows. Take a look around, though. The cloud has come. It was almost 5 days before we actually could see any cloud over Europe, but it's up there today, and let's hope they can get to the finish without too many soakings. We don't want to see them get too wet or cause any accidents on the way. But right now, they're coming down slowly but surely. The big field is winding them in. They've taken 4 of the 5 available prizes out on the course, so they won't be doing this for nothing today. Into the coffers of the team will go some money, as we look at the peloton now at 7:14. All right, well, there's the peloton. The green jersey being worn by Robin McEwen, the red jersey by Tom Bonen. They are both in the main pack and coming back slowly but surely. Well, this can be a rough sport at time, but there's one even rougher, and I guess the roughest 8 seconds in sport, well, that's got to be professional bull riding. And yes, you can see it on OLN. The toughest riders try to hang on to 1,500 pounds of sheer fury. Sometimes they don't do it. The PBR every weekend on OLN. Enjoy. 2 men in the lead. They're getting ready for the PBR while we're getting ready for the finish of this year's Tour de France. The peloton is now heading towards Caen, and we're on stage 5, of course. Well, a lack of interest from the spectators, I think, at this point. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I think they all look pretty keen, don't you?
I suppose they do. Here's the view from our camera motorbike through the rear view mirror, as the peloton, as always, under the escort of the team which has the leader on it, and that's Tom Bonen. Funnily enough, Tom Bonen, yes, he's proud to be the first time he's ever wore the leader's jersey in a Tour de France, but what his eyes are set on, first of all and primarily, is a stage win, because he's won 17 races this year, and like all sprinters, they won a stage win of the Tour de France. After that, I think he'd go looking for McEwen's green jersey.
He will certainly try and snatch the green jersey away from Robin McEwen, but that's going to be a big battle, I would say, all the way to Paris. They're separated only by 9 points. Robin McEwen with a total of 100 points in that race, Boonen with 91 points. Then it's a fairly big gap down to Bernati and Oscar Freire, and Thor Hushovd with that relegation yesterday, really dropped away from the top of the leaderboard.
7:08, so they gained half a minute. They've chopped it back now to almost 7 minutes once again. We're heading towards the last categorized climb of the day, which comes in about 9 more kilometers time, and then after that these boys are going to get a little bit restless. There's Bonin. He's like a giant animal stalking the peloton here as he goes through, checks everybody out, has a word. He always looks so casual. The little yellow thing on the spokestays is a transponder.
Yeah, the transponder transmits directly to a machine on the finish line to give us a quick result of how the riders have crossed the line, but it can become a little bit confusing. You have to pay a lot more attention to just the technology, because sometimes, as we saw yesterday, Iban Mayo actually didn't finish the race on his own bike.
Yeah.
He finished the race on the bike of Inigo Landaluz.
That's right. Well, it looks as though Tom Bonin here is actually checking out on his team now and saying things like, right guys, it's time to start sorting the chase out now. How are you feeling? Where do you want to go? How are you going to help me win my stage? That's what probably he's saying to them. So the quick stop are all together, but yesterday, of course, it was the De Vitamin Lotto, the Belgian team, sadly now without Freddie Rodriguez, who crashed 2 days ago and is out of the race. Let's have a look then at our Saab afterburner report. This is what happened. An incredible sprint by this little man from Australia, the Queenslander, Robbie McEwen. What a great win it was, and way out of it was Tom Bonin. Just look at the gap. He's like a rabbit running for goal, and that's the way it happens with Robbie McEwen's second win in 3 days. Yes, that's our Saab afterburner report. Now let's have a look a little bit more of the facts and figures of Robbie McEwen here. 33 years of age he is now, only weighs 146 pounds, lucky man. And his role is one of a sprinter. Been a pro a long time, since 1996. He's now won 10 stages, by the way, of the Tour de France, far and away an Australian record. Meanwhile, we're back in the sunshine now as we go back to live pictures here of the Tour de France, continuing on, 74 kilometers to go. The riders now heading through Luray, as they still need another 7 minutes on the road. 7 minutes, that's about 3.5 kilometers, maybe slightly less than that. 3 kilometers is the lead of the riders ahead of them. At one stage they were over 12. And so as we watch the peloton here now continue on, sitting here comfortably at the back of the pack is Chris Horner. He's got those 2 damaged fingers strapped together as well, also a victim of the war of this year's Tour de France. But for everybody else, they'll be concentrating soon on how to stop this man winning his first stage. We'll be back.
Horner, the American, and he has got 2
Welcome
fingers.
back to the Tour de France as we're heading towards the finish today. Around 71 kilometers left to ride, just a couple of kilometers now for the last small climb of the day. We're on the road from Beauvais in northern France. Many of the riders, by the way, stayed overnight at Compiègne, and that is where the riders start in the great Paris-Roubaix Classic. So it was a familiar venue for a lot of the riders, including, of course, Tom Bonin. The leading group is at 2 riders, 6:55. And look at these riders' names, because we've got them all tied up today so we can see just how well they are doing. Ekimov, Voigt, Lang, Zeberg and Garate. I think maybe we can show you the heart rate of Garate. Let's see if we can find it. Yes, there we are. So this is our polar heart rate today of Juan Manuel Garate. He's beating pretty relaxed, isn't he? 143 beats per minute. Little white line on the right is the maximum point, and that is 192. If he reaches that, he's in trouble. And we're riding along at the moment at 43 kilometers an hour. So he's cruising, is Juan Manuel Garate. He's right on the front as well at the moment, by the way. Well, what's happening to all the favourites? Why do we never talk about them? The men who want to win the Tour de France. The reason is, of course, we are heading for the first time trial on Saturday. Then we'll be talking about different names. This is the situation after yesterday's stage. George Hincapie, 1 day in yellow, is only 5 seconds away from the race lead. Paolo Sabadelli climbs like an angel, 15 seconds behind. Same can be said of Landis, Evans, Popovic and Levi Leipheimer. They are waiting for Saturday for the time trial. That'll be the big reshuffle of the race. You bet your life it will. And by the end of Saturday, there could be another American in the yellow jersey. And then, of course, we're heading south for the big mountains, which is always exciting. Well, there we are, France at its best as the Tour is back in the sun. Well, a very pretty scene here, Paul, as I think the Pelargonians those, but somebody will write in and tell me they're not, as we look at the two leaders here. And this is Bjorn Schroeder and Samuel Dumoulin, Frenchman, up again in the action. Latest time check, 7 minutes 10 seconds, 69 kilometers to go. Now let me see, your formula is a minute every 10 kilometers. That means they'll win.
Sadly, I don't think they will.
Oh.
Because what's going to happen, these guys in the main field, they haven't really turned up the pressure all that much so far. And if you work out just exactly how fast the main peloton can go towards the end, they can travel along at about 55 kilometers an hour. In the last hour of racing, if they really try hard, they can wipe out a 7 or 8 minute advantage in the last hour of the race.
Yeah, because these guys actually are just riding their own speed. They're not pushing themselves into the red zone. That would be absolutely stupid. They'd have no legs left to continue tomorrow. So they're just hoping that the peloton leaves them out there and then perhaps forgets to chase them until it's too late. And then, of course, they actually do succeed. It happens, believe me. And Samuel Dumoulin, the smallest man in the race, according to the statistics we're seeing on the computer occasionally, he is actually putting a little bit more effort into this than Bjorn Schroeder. There's the main field, help at hand from Robbie McEwen's Lotto team down there. And all the boys in blue are Tom Bonen. You see Bonen, he's riding 7th man in the yellow jersey, never away from the front, keeps out of trouble, rides only behind his teammates. His teammates know exactly where he is, so that if he does have a flat tyre, they're right with him all of the way.
Well, I reckon in my calculations, Tom Bonen has to put in his best performance here this afternoon if he wants to keep that yellow jersey for another day, because on the finish line, there's 20 seconds for the first rider to cut the tape, 12 seconds for the second place rider, 8 seconds for the third place rider. If Tom Bonen doesn't finish in the top 4, you could see Thor Hushovd becoming the new leader, Robbie McEwen or Daniel Bernati, the big sprinters, because they have been very consistent. That's why I'm beginning to think that this afternoon Tom Bonen might come up with the goods and get himself the victory. After all, he's a proud rider. He is the leader of this race by a single second, and he wants to keep that yellow jersey if he can, Phil, all the way to the big time trial on Saturday.
There is a possibility, of course, of that. And don't forget that Michael Rogers, the rider from Canberra, Australia, he sits only 1 second off that yellow jersey. He did try to grab that second back earlier on today. He missed out by being beaten in the sprint from third. He gained 4. Third would have got him 2 seconds. But he is going to beat Tom, let's face it, in the time trial, which is on Saturday. And that could be the next destination of the Maillot Jaune.
Well, a lot of the big riders, the big favourites we talk about before the start of the Tour de France, have actually been down here to have a quick look at the individual prologue. So for them, it's fairly important. And for everybody, it's a big rendezvous. The Côte de Boulet now, a 4th category climb. It's just 1.6 kilometres long. Maximum height, 145 metres. Not too much to worry about. 4.8% average grade. But at the top, it's 66 kilometres to go.
There's no big challenge again. These riders are taking points, of course, in the King of the Mountains, but it's their first points of this year's Tour, so they won't challenge Jérôme Pinot, who has actually consolidated his lead today by winning the first climb, and he's also had a place in the second climb, so he's done all right in that department. The gap is still coming down slowly. We're now down. Almost a minute has been lopped off the top. 6 minutes 10 seconds, the latest gap, and really the main field haven't put themselves under pressure yet. So those riders are slowing down, and the peloton knows that, of course. They were looking at the front of the race here now. Now these are the riders of Tom Bonen. You can see Tom just keeping safe in that all yellow strip he's got. Not too far behind him is the green jersey too of Robbie McEwen. I just noticed then in Phonak, Floyd Landis always rides cleverly just off the front of the bunch, always out of trouble.
Well, that's a tactic that he learned, I think, riding alongside Lance Armstrong. He was a teammate of Armstrong's for many, many years. I've also noted Levi Leipheimer being very attentive at the front end of the peloton. And the reason that Floyd Landis is doing that is because he wants to make sure that he doesn't get involved in a nasty accident like Alejandro Valverde. Valverde made a mistake maybe for a fraction of a second by dropping down to around about 30th place, and that's where the accident happened a couple of days ago on the road up to Holland, and that can rob all dreams of a Tour de France, and Landis knows that. He's learned that from Armstrong over many years, and now he's adopting exactly the same tactic. Right at the front, make sure you don't fall, and just deliver on the very special days like the individual time trials and the big mountain finishes.
I think the motto is use your head as much as you use your legs when you ride a stage of the Tour de France. These are professional cyclists. This is their day in the office. And it's a long day too. It can be up to 6.5 hours on the long stages, and they can be climbing the high mountains as well, of course. Inside 6 minutes the gap now at 66 kilometers almost. We're heading up towards the top of the last categorized climb of the day. It's only 4th category, which is the lowest or the shallowest of the climbs, Côte de Boulet. And in fact today Dumoulin, the little boy at the back here, has won everything. Now that's not normal, because when there's two of you sharing the work, you usually share the prizes.
Normally in a breakaway like this, when none of the points are at all important to anyone in the move, you would expect the riders in the break to share all the prizes, but that doesn't seem to be the situation. But I think this time the German rider's going to get himself a couple of points.
That's right, that's exactly what he's done. Schroeder allowed to take that. Dumoulin, it's the last prize of the day as far as the mountains are concerned. Still the big sprint to come at Pont l'Evêque, but that's still 15 kilometers away. They might even have caught up by then, but somehow I doubt it. Well, we've had some great stage wins so far. Who's going to win today? Welcome back to the Tour de France. Yes, since 1903, it's all been about who wins the Tour de France. And really, since about 1937, I think it was, it's been about who will always wear that leader's yellow jersey. It's the most coveted prize in the world of cycle racing. And that's why they course around France, just hoping one day Lady Luck might smile and at the night they'll be presented to have the leader's yellow jersey. Well, one man who did so well this week, he's ridden the Tour many, many times, but he's never worn yellow before. But this year, Lady Luck smiled on him, although he was a very aggressive rider. George Hincapie, here he is on yellow.
To wear the yellow jersey of the Tour de France is a dream for every cyclist, even just to wear it for a day. It's all of a sudden you're the king of cycling. To wear the yellow jersey is definitely a dream for every cyclist.
Yes, indeed, and Hincapie's had it for one day now, and that can't be taken away from him. But there have been plenty of Americans who've worn the yellow jersey. Well, not plenty, but 4 of them have worn it. And Greg LeMond, when he set the trend, he actually won 22 yellow jersey. Armstrong ranks 2nd in the all-time history of the Tour de France, behind Eddie Merckx. He's won 83. Last year we saw Zabriskie win the first day. He held on to it for 3 days. He got 3. And now George Hincapie joins a very elite group of American cyclists. As we race up towards the top then of the Côte de Boulet for the riders, it looks like Jérôme Pinault continues a great day in the mountains, Paul.
Well, the little mountains, I have to say,
yes,
of Normandy,
hills,
but for him, he's going to be very happy, because although he's not one of the most famous names in the sport of professional cycling, he will be a lot more famous now in the French eyes, because of the fact is he has been getting points all along these small mountains to keep him in the lead in the overall classification. I'm not surprised really to see Fabian Wegmann this time desisting and not coming up to the attack, because after all they were only fighting out for 1 point, and the best way for Wegmann to think about it is to try and win a 3rd category climb a little bit later on. Thank you very much, I think he was saying there to Brochard.
Yes, he's done well. There's the result for you. And Schroeder gets the 3 points, Dumoulin gets 2, and Pinault scores another single point. And this could well keep him in this jersey for the rest of this week if all goes well. Well, I don't know what's happening there, but the road seemed to narrow down so much. Riders actually stopped and put their foot down there right on the top of the climb. Now, I've no idea why. Remember, these are live pictures, and the camera suddenly cuts to riders queuing up there to get over the top. So I'm not sure what happened, but anyway, I don't think it was a crash, because the boys are getting back into the thick of it. This is David Moncoutier at the back, the leader of the French Cofidis team. Meanwhile, up front, that lead is now down to well inside 6 minutes. Here they are as they continue to race with the typical caravan of press, cameras, referees, team cars, doctors and ambulances all following them across the countryside. Well, as we look at these two riders, we just heard from George Hincapie talking about that yellow jersey. Well, now, in our Nike 10-2 moment, we can tell you a little bit more. Well, this was the sprint that gave him just 2 seconds here because he was beaten in the rush for the line by Tor Hushoff. Hincapie wearing the green points jersey at that point, but that 2 seconds was good enough to give him the lead on the road. He confirmed it at the finish, and the result was his first ever maillot jaune, and that's his first ever yellow jersey. So there we are. And there are more great moments too, by the way. Just go to wearyellow.com. That's our Nike 10-2 moment. Rejoining the action here, as the riders now know that they are doomed, but they won't give up because there's still one more sprint along the road. Pont l'Evêque is just about 6 miles ahead of them at the moment. These are fabulous racing roads, aren't they? Nice, good surface, undulating, not monotonous. Riders can't see you when you've got a lead because you're lost in the hedgerows, and that's what they like. And fortunately, the rain seems to have stayed behind them, because here at the finish, it is now a beautiful, warm, sunny day, tickling the 80-degree Fahrenheit. And these two willing to continue working together, just in the hope that on one occasion the Tour de France doesn't chase them down. What a hope. We'll be back. Looking down on the Tour de France, there's Floyd Landis's lime green team, keeping him out of trouble on the left of the pack as they continue towards Con, and the breakaway continues to be reeled in at 5 minutes 38 seconds. As we see these riders here, and on the front are the Quick Step team. Remember that all the boys in blue are the teammates of the rider in yellow today, which is Tom Bonan. He sits there behind. We've got the yellow and the green jerseys both being worn. The green jersey of McEwen, dead centre of picture, sitting. In fact, McEwen today is going nowhere. He's watching Tom Bonan everywhere he rides, and he's sitting just behind him. And so he's brought up one or two teammates to share with the pacemaking. Wants to play his part with his team because they're both likely to win. In the green jersey competition, he has 100 points, Robbie McEwen. A big lead at the moment, 91 for Tom Bonan. And Bernardi is quite a few people's choice for a win today. He sits in third place. Meanwhile, up the road we go to the two leaders, who are not going to give this one up without a fight today. Samuel Dumoulin and Bjorn Schroeder. This is Dumoulin. They've been away since the 12th mile of the stage today. And time is running out for the peloton. As always, they've got to start thinking about coming on in and reeling this group in, because that is the big question of the day. Where are we going today? That's Bjorn Schroeder. All right, well, don't forget also to log on to itv.com, because our Saab Watch and Win sweepstakes are there to be won by you. Let's have another look at today's code word, and it is Hincapie. Rain for the day. Commentators shouldn't say that. Terrific tailwind finish for the riders today. Well, as I say, Paul, I don't think we'll see any more rain today. Now the clouds are breaking up, nice white and fluffy ones. But have you seen the flags here? This is going to be a tough finish. The riders very quick. It's
going to be very grippy, and I'm sure a lot of teams will have sent information back about the wind direction, because as we get down towards the finish line, the riders come in along the coast. They go almost into the town of Le Havre, and then, although slightly inland from the coast, they will be going through an area which is very open, and they will be buffeted by side winds. Now, that is the kind of area where you have to be very careful of the Belgian and Dutch teams, because they know how to ride in the wind to absolute and utter perfection. And sometimes it's as difficult. This is the scary point we saw a few moments ago, but there will be a few yelps in the main field as riders will communicate to the guys behind them. Watch out, it's a little bit dangerous here. And as true professionals, I think everybody's got through there safely. But to finish off the thought there, Phil, if you are riding in the wind and you can't get any slipstream from the rider in front of you because it's a crosswind, it's almost as difficult to stay on the wheel as it is trying to climb up a big mountain.
Yes, the crosswinds are the scourge of professional cycling. The weak get blown away, and the strong just go further and further ahead. Still sitting here at the back is David Moncoutier. Isaac Galvez is just in front of him there. And the weight work all being done here. 5:20 the gap now, 55 kilometers to go to the finishing line.
Graham Tankink on the front, followed still by Cedric Vasseur. They seem to be, I think, because of the fatigue that's been shown by Pippo Pozzato and, of course, the other riders on the squad of Team Quickstep, they've decided to put another two riders on the front for the long turns, and it's now the turn of Tankink and, of course, of Cedric Vasseur to just set the pace.
Well, if things go according to plan, they will be caught only on the outskirts. That's based on the average speed of the two groups at the moment. They should be picked up around 6 kilometers from the finish, but I think we'll catch them before then. Well, this is one of those little nice smooth roads now, which is beckoning the leaders here as they continue. 5:20, a lot of work being done by Samuel Dumoulin here. He won the Tour of Normandy, a small stage race in this area, 4 years ago now. That's where he got his name from. So let's see how he goes as he gets near the finish. Certainly his name is going to be on all French people's lips in this region. Well, don't forget to go to olntv.com, where we'll give you the latest updates on the Tour de France. You'll get all of the minute expert analysis, the recaps, the race routes, where we're going, where we've been, the track contenders, leaderboard results, and of course the exclusive rider forecast. That's olntv.com. It's your link to the cyclism, the Tour de France here on OLN. Well, as we look here at these two riders, these are the rabbits today, but I'm afraid the hounds are chasing them down as they come towards the finish. One team having a great tour so far without Lance Armstrong is Team Discovery, and we'll learn more about those when we come back after this break. Hincapie is more than living up to his job at the moment as being one of the team leaders. Welcome back. We're with the Tour de France. The pace has suddenly gone up a little notch now because we're heading into the sprint region of the day. This is the Pont l'Evêque and takes us to 50 kilometres to go. We're about 1.5 kilometres away from that. But with two riders away, they've got to watch the third place rider. There is a 2-second time bonus. There's 2 points for the green jersey competition. So Bonen might suddenly try to sprint out of this pack. And in fact, looking down there now, Robbie McEwen has moved ahead of Tom Bonen. Just to keep an eye on the situation. You see he's 3-6 in that green jersey, riding his 7th wheel. Bonen quite clearly has decided today to chase nothing, I think, and he's going to put all his eggs into one basket for that big finish in Caen. Well, it's only 31 miles away now, just over 50 kilometres to go to the finish in Caen. As we look at these riders now swinging to the right. Well, I'm pretty sure, Paul, looking from the helicopter here, that Tom Bonen, as we head into Pont l'Evêque, makes some of the best cheese in the world, I think. We are now heading into a situation where Bonen is not going to contest these sprints. He's going to go and do what Robbie has done the last couple of days, put everything into the finishing sprint. We'll see in a moment, but that's what I think.
Well, Robbie has shown these guys exactly what to do. The right tactic is to wait.
These are the two leaders then that we're with now, and sitting at the back here is Bjorn Schroeder, setting the pace as he has for much of the day, in fairness, but they are working together. Is Samuel Dumoulin still holding a lead of 5 minutes at Pont l'Evêque. Last sprint of the day here for these two leaders. There won't be a sprint between these two, but I think the third place, which carries 2 seconds and 2 green jersey points, might be a little bit more entertaining. These riders more intent on hanging on to the finish. Unlikely they'll do that. Just over 50 kilometres to go to the line, and the gap is down to more or less 5 minutes.
Just hovering on the 5 minutes, always on the descent, the advantage of these two riders. Getting inside the final few hundred meters now for the time bonus sprint here at Pont l'Evêque. And I wonder if this time Schroeder's going to come up with the goods, but it doesn't look as if Sammy Dumoulin is too worried about letting him cross the line in first place. I do believe that Robbie McEwen and Tom Bonen will wait until the finish, because I think Tom Bonen has learned a little bit from Robbie McEwen's attitude, and Robbie McEwen realizes the biggest time bonuses and the biggest points are on the finish line.
Well, just that wasn't a sprint, of course. Dumoulin's won everything except the previous climb of the Côte de Boulay today. Now they will continue on. There's nothing left now but to race for home. 49 kilometres or so to go. And we'll wait for what will be an extraordinary sprint at third place. Nice to see all the Belgian flags flying there. Well, Team Middelram, who are in this breakaway with Bjorn Schroeder, I can tell you they stayed in Compiègne last night, which is a very noisy town in view of all of the success the French had in the semi-finals of the World Soccer. So I hope they got some sleep. Anyway, let's join Capital One Athlete Profile now, and of course we're going to focus on Team Discovery.
We start the Tour de France with different leaders. It's a choice, but it's also something we are forced to do because we don't have a defined leader that we can say, okay, this guy is going to be on the podium.
Well, right now there's probably about 3 potential leaders for the Discovery Channel team at the Tour de France. I think that we should have one leader, and that'll probably be decided in the first week of the tour. Now that Lance is gone, we have to kind of show who should be the leader.
George has never been in that kind of situation, so we don't know what we can expect. Popo is a bit young, so maybe he doesn't have the consistency yet. Jose has finished high, but he's never been in the role of a leader. And Paulo has never been focusing on the Tour de France.
This is 4 names, and it's impossible in one team have 4 riders to the same objective. I think the important is the 9 riders start the tour the best they can, 100%. And after this is one decision for Johan.
The leader of our team is discovery, and that's the goal. It's to get one discovery guy as high as possible in the classification.
Yes, what a great all-round team Team Discovery is. That was our Capital One athlete profile. Let's have a look where they're standing overall today. Hincapie is third, 5 seconds off yellow. Igor Martinez yesterday came up to fifth, 10 seconds down. Savadelli, a demon in the mountains. Il Falco at 15 seconds. Popovic, is he too young? Well, he's only lost 27 seconds so far. Ace Acevedo lost less, just half a minute. Rubier at 45. This is a quality team. And Vyacheslav Ekimov at 40 years of age, don't worry, he can look after himself. So that's a superb team as we continue our tour of the chateaus here now of France as we head up towards the sea today. And look at this. Well, we could have guessed this, couldn't we? Johan van Someren has pulled the same tactic twice today and got away with it. And off he goes again to take the 2 seconds and the 2 green jersey points away from Tom Bonen. No good to him, but he stopped anybody else getting them, so Robbie can have a little bit of time out. Well, we could have read that one, Paul, I guess.
Well, it's good. I think it's probably an agreement between Robbie McEwen and, of course, Tom Bonen to say, well, let's just put a man off the front so we don't have to battle it out and we can duke it all out once we get down towards the finish line. And that, I think, is probably the most sensible thing, because then we'll see who is the fastest man. If Robbie McEwen gets the win at the end of today's stage and Tom Bonen does not place in the top 3, Robbie McEwen is going to be the new leader of this race. And McEwen, you know, Phil, is such a calculator.
Oh, yeah.
He knows that when it comes down to the individual time trial, he's going to get blown away, because Robbie does not like the time trial, doesn't like riding on his own. He thrives on the peloton. He thrives on finding his way through the pack. But he also knows he needs to get a bit of publicity in Australia. And Michael Rogers, he's thinking, is probably going to be the next leader of the race.
Well, I'll tell you what, when Robbie isn't a contender for stage wins, we'll probably see him entertaining us in the high mountains, doing wheelies on his bicycle, because he was a great BMX rider, terrific bike handler, calculates how much time he needs to get in and beat the time limit of each daily stage, and then he'll live to fight the sprints towards the end of the last week. Here we are under the banner, 3rd place for Johan van Someren. 3 times he's done that today. 3 times he stopped the big boys bothering to sprint. Well, the order over the line for the record book: Dumoulin, Schroeder and Van Someren. 6-4 and 2 seconds time bonus, 6-4 and 2 points for the green jersey. None of those riders who've won any of that today will affect the overall leaderboard, because Dumoulin, for example, is almost 4 minutes behind, and 6 seconds doesn't really make a lot of difference for him. There are a lot of Belgian flags out. They must all be on holiday up in this part of northern France. We're quite a long way from Belgium now, as we're heading out, of course, towards the furthest point west in the north of France here, which is Brittany. But today we stop short in Normandy. So as we look down here now, it's quite clear that these riders in the peloton are thinking that it's going to be a sprint, because that's why the 2 big sprinters, Boonen and McEwen, have decided they want a free-for-all between the 2 of them. No energy wasted along the road. Little problem of catching the 2 leaders, but that'll be up to the helpers, and I'm sure they will do it. The beaches of Normandy there. Welcome back to the Tour de France. This has just happened here. The rider in the middle is Gomez Marchant, and I saw him go clean over the handlebars. The whole team were riding near the back. The rider on the right is David Moncoutier. We were telling you, not the place to be, and now he's been involved in a crash. And again, it was a silly crash. It was caused by the Sonia Duval rider, who just went over the handlebars because he was forced to put his front brake on, and it threw him off the bike. Anyway, nobody hurt. Here we are. There we can see it again. There it is. And he just went straight over the handlebars. Fortunately, a bit of a shock, but that's all it was here. De La Fuente, who's second in the King of the Mountain at the moment, number 143. Isaac Galvez, you see, who's riding at the back, delayed by that situation. Now he's got to race and waste energy. That may have got him a sprint win. Meanwhile, up the front here, a little bit of effort being made now. And this is Thomas Lundqvist in the yellow cross on his jersey, champion of Sweden, youngest rider in the race at 22 there. Well, Paul, it just confirmed everything we said. Isaac was also involved, and we said it wasn't the place to ride at the back.
It's the risk you take riding at the back end of the main field, but they are very lucky in the fact that Tom Boonen had stopped for a rest stop at that point, which is why there are not too many blue jerseys on the front, so they'll catch up quite quickly. But all of that, Phil, adds to the stress. It adds to the pain, it adds to the extra fatigue of the first week of the Tour de France, and that's why we have a first week before we get down to the mountains. Otherwise, it'd just be a mountain climb.
Well, the gap is 4:38 at the moment. If you're just joining us, the two leaders are Samuel Dumoulin of France and Bjorn Schroeder, Germany, and these two riders are about 4.5 minutes clear. But at one stage today, they were over 12 minutes ahead. The leader of the Classement par équipe, which is the team race, is Discovery, and those riders now nicely settled within the bunch, all of them, including the Vyacheslav Yekimov.
Well, they're only leading that competition by a second, but that will all change in the time trial, and it might even go to their advantage.
This is Garate, who swings over.
Christophe Moreau, the large rider in the blue and white jersey of AG2R. He could ride very well. He's actually not too far down in the overall classification either. He's currently lying in 14th place after a very good prologue time trial. A little bit upset, I think, with the team management of Crédit Agricole, because he learned in the press during the course of last year's Tour de France that his contract wasn't going to be renewed. And he did say he wished that the team had actually discussed it with him beforehand, and he didn't think that that was really the right way to learn about it.
No, well, I think he's probably right. You don't want the journalist to tell you when you've got the sack, do you?
Not really.
Well, we're looking at about 26 miles to go, just over 50 kilometers. Looking at the computer, Ekimov's not stressed at all. 60% of stress out of a likely 100. No power coming out of a mere 161 watts, and a restful heart rate of 117, and all this at 40 years of age.
That's very cool, I have to tell you. The important thing about the wattage output, normally if you're riding an average training ride, you'd be riding at around about 200, 250 watts. So Vyacheslav Ekimov today is not even producing the wattage that he would on a training ride. Once you start to push it up high to a time trial type performance, you're looking at around about the 450 watt output. And the sprinters, we have figures on Tom Boonen, for example, could produce over a short period of time 1,800 watts. I'd like to see Robbie McEwen's figures.
Absolutely. 4:27 the gap here. Well, at the moment, they're continuing on a schedule to catch the two leaders about 6 kilometers from the end. Very regular, but I would have thought they'd catch up before then, before they start the big battle. Look at this. Moncoutier still trying to catch up here after that silly little accident. And the boys in blue have got to drive soon to bring it down, to bring Boonen and McEwen together head to head in what should be a great finish. Welcome back. We're on the North Sea coast now. These are the beaches, of course, the longest day here in June 1944. As we're now watching here the arrival of the Tour de France, and the leaders of the sprinters are driving on now as we head towards that coastline. The leaders are just 4 minutes 21 ahead, but we are inside 40 kilometers to go. No time for shadow boxing now, and this is why Crédit Agricole has sent some help up there. Meanwhile, delayed by that crash and really struggling now to get on is 131 at the back here, David Moncoutier. The rider in orange there is Inigo Landelus, the winner of the Dauphiné Libre last year. Didn't ride this year, and he saved all his eggs for the Tour de France. And the little rider there doing all of the work for Cofidis, I think, is Jimmy Casper, and he is driving on here to try and put his team leader back in. And they're dodging the cars here. It's a long way That crash was not a serious fall, but it split them away from the field. They are wasting their energy now. And this is a little bit further up the field by about 4 minutes and 19 seconds as we catch up with the two leaders. They've been away since the 12th mile or 20th kilometre today of 225, and they're inside 40 kilometres from the finish. So they would like to know where they're going today, I suppose. Well, we can show you exactly where we're going today. This is the Tour de France, making its way through 6 different countries, including France this year, as it goes right around the hexagon and back up to the finish in Paris. And today we're right over top left there, racing from Beauvais to Caen. Not many hills up in this region. We're into the department of Normandy by the time we get over to the finish. The mouth of the Seine there, just above the yellow line, the same river that goes to the centre of Paris. That's where it tips out into the North Sea. Now, these two riders, they always deserve success when you attack so far out. They rarely get it. 4:11, all of the challenges of the day on the road are behind us, and welcome back to the breakaway now by these 3 riders. They're just about to hitch up with the peloton again. I must say, Paul, they made a meal of that. It was a hard chase at this stage of the race.
Well, I think unfortunately for him, most of the big names got back on quite quickly and he got caught out. But David Moncoutier, I don't think has got great condition this year. He's a rider who last year won on the 14th of July, had a great victory down in the southern part of France. But I've been reading in the newspapers that he's had rather a hard time with one of his legs. He seems to have either a hip or a leg injury, sciatic nerve injury possibly, because he's not generating the same amount of power in one leg as he is in the other. And as I said on a number of occasions before, this is not the best place to come for a rest camp.
No, not in any manner or means at any stage of the day. AG2R seem to have got themselves reorganised at the front. You can tell by the concentration on their faces, though. Life is not a pleasant saunter through the lanes of Normandy right now, as they're all watching. But these boys are not coming in fast enough yet. If I were those 2 riders up front, I wouldn't yet be too discouraged. In fact, I'd stick at it, because there is a chance today they might well stay away. 23 miles or so to go. It's a possibility. And just looking further down the ride, I don't know where this rider is. Well, this is Martin Perdiguero, very good sprinter, very good bike rider, this chap. And I think we'll see a lot of him when we get out to the mountains. He could be a very valuable teammate indeed to Floyd Landis. He's dropping off the back actually to check for his team car. Here it comes. Now, which one's going to run him down, the race referees or his own team car? He slipped round as he drops back now. He probably wants a drink, or he might want a little bit of information. I'm not sure whether we'll see what he wants. But I'll tell you, Martin Perdiguero is a most underestimated rider. He really is a very, very good cyclist indeed. Might have a mechanical problem. I don't think he was involved in that shunt earlier. But anyway, he's just having a chat, and it looks a friendly chat. What's down there? Something wrong with his gears? No, just a chance to show you his 10 cluster at the back. 4:21. I've got a feeling they could have made a mistake here, you know. They're not closing in very fast, are they? Well, for those of you I hope are playing with our Saab Watch and Win sweepstakes, let me remind you, get on to olntv.com, fly to the finish. You'll need the code word, and it's Hincapie today, so watch out for that one. As we continue with the peloton, speeding on past these beautiful chateaux and farms here in the department of Normandy. Much of this area devastated by the bombings of the World War, and now rebuilding itself. Beautiful part of France, and it's a fabulous finish today. We circle Caen around by the Hippique, which is the trotting courses, and then we come up to the finishing straight. It'll be a headwind finish today too. Very difficult for the sprinters to judge, and they may not even. Welcome back. The concentration of the riders in the Tour de France today. Floyd Landis dead centre left there, keeping himself out of trouble. Sometimes I forget to recognise Floyd after he's had his shave. His little goatee beard's disappeared there. As we look down on this slight rise at the peloton at the back and all of the team cars, this great spectacle which tours around France now, with only a brief incursion into Spain. Otherwise we stay here until the 23rd of July. And Michael Markson in the centre of our picture too. Remember him last year, won the King of the Mountains, fell off a couple of times in the last time trial. It cost him 3rd place in the race. That was very sad. And there, they can't see it, but we can, is the coast now as we close in on Caen. 34 kilometres or so to go. Those are the beaches of Normandy. They've played more than their part in history throughout time. And today, it's going to be a happy arrival for the Tour in Caen after a ride of 225 kilometres. And I'm wondering now whether they might be misjudging the attack being made here by these two riders. Remember, they are still clear and chasing them. There's the temperamental, the temperature out on there, by the way, is superb today as we go on. All right, let's carry on then, and let's talk about our latest Lanson feature.
In the age of potentially cloning, I would clone 4 Chechus and 4 Georges and 1 of me. I think we'd be okay. We were lucky to find guys that could do both. A guy like Chechu can ride on the flats and he can climb. A guy like George obviously rides on the flats and can climb very well. Even a guy like Pavel. We always found these guys that we could get in very good shape, really motivate them. And when you have 30 or 40 guys over the top of the Galibier, you've got 6 or 7 guys there. You can't argue with those numbers. So I wouldn't even break it down. I certainly wouldn't include a sprinter if you want to win the Tour. But I would pick the strongest guys you can and encourage them to do everything, to ride on the flats, to climb, ride in the wind, ride smart, ride up front, avoid crashes. That's the way you win.
Oh boy, what an ideal team it was too. That's today's Lanson, brought to you by American Century Investments, mutual funds and institutional money management for more than 45 years. These are the two leaders now, well inside 4 minutes, so they are slowly being hauled back to order here, but is it going to be quick enough? The shoulders rolling a little bit of young Samuel Dumoulin, setting his jaw there, 3:48. He's never going to go back in a white flag situation. He is going to go all the way to the finish, or they've got to catch him. You can see his attitude. Just looking here at the face of Dumoulin, Paul, this guy is going to go down to the line. He's never going to give up.
Well, he's a Frenchman. He won't give up. He's been in situations like this. He actually had a very long breakaway like this a couple of years ago on the opening stages of the Dauphiné Libéré. Won himself the stage and got himself the overall lead. A brave rider, but I think he must understand how quickly the main field will start to whip it up. Although we haven't, over the last couple of days, really seen a massive chase by the teams of the sprinters. It's as if they put their force in the early part of the race, and nobody really wants to use up all of their ammunition in a chase down of a breakaway. They always want to try and keep a little bit back in reserve.
Well, they're holding back. I don't know if they're closing in quite quick enough yet. I mean, I know they always tend to make the catch as close to the line as possible. That allows the sprinters just enough time to organize the chase. There's a lot of shadow boxing going on down there today, though, because we've now seen just how quick Robbie McEwen is. And Tom Bonan, I think, is afraid of McEwen right now, because I don't think he's quite as fast as McEwen. A month ago, he was way faster than McEwen. I'm not so sure he is today.
Well, every rider to his own. Let's not forget that Robin McEwen didn't have to ride a very hard classics campaign as Tom Bonan did. Tom Bonan was, of course, the winner of the Tour de Flanders. He was second in Paris-Roubaix, while Robbie McEwen started his season off in Australia. Then he came back to Tirreno Adriatico. Then he rode the Tour of Italy. Robbie is a little bit older than Tom Bonan, probably knows his body that little bit better, knows how to prepare himself for his peaks and trough of the season. While for Tom Bonan, I think being the world champion has also put a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
Here come the leaders. Massive entourage behind the two leaders just now. There's Dumoulin, not daring to think about what might happen. 3.5 minutes, the gap now. Just 19 miles left to race. It is possible. It is possible. You've got to believe in yourself and hope it all works out. It is 2 riders versus 170 in this year's Tour de France. And we still think the winner is back in the bunch, despite the shunt and the dodging of the central reservation. This is the Tour de France live on OLN, and we'll be back. The beauty of northern France, the beaches of Normandy. This is the town of Cabourg here. This is the promenade. Everybody enjoying a wonderful day out. The Tour de France not far away, and this aerial view is brought to us by Trek. And I must say that the northern beaches here of Normandy have turned on in style today, because there is a strong wind blowing. but it's far from being a cold, chilled wind. It is quite nice, actually. The big heavy shower the riders went through about 2 hours ago is long since forgotten. These two riders have not given up hope, and for just reason here. 28 kilometers to go, 3 minutes and 15 seconds their advantage. Just lost a second there. So there is still a chance they could survive here to the finish. And no signs of either of them getting tired, despite the fact they broke away after 20 kilometers. 3:14, 17 miles to go, Paul. It's a chance, surely.
I'm sorry. I still think they're going to get caught. I reckon they'll get caught at around about 5 miles to go, or 8.6 kilometers from the finish, because I still feel now the main field, it's okay working all this stuff out with computers and calculators, but you've got to look at the main field. And the main field, the front end of it, has completely changed now. There are 3 teams really putting the pressure on, and they will whip up the pace by at least 10 kilometers an hour faster than these two boys can do.
Well, 3:11, they've only knocked off 3 seconds in the last few minutes. There's the peloton. That's the long line at the front, and if you pan to the back, you find there will be 1 or 2 guys just hanging on there. The line gets thinner towards the end. You see, look at that now, right down to the tail. The wind is blowing from the left of our television pictures across the road, and the heart of the pack is the place to be, but it takes a strong rider to hold position. The tail of the pack, those boys are in trouble. They are literally hanging on, and this is why now De Vitamin Lotto, Crédit Agricole, Quick Step, looks like Française de Jeu, a lot of Discovery Channel are also coming up now. This is beginning to come a free for all at the front, and it's having an effect. 3 minutes 3 seconds. They know now, little matter of urgency as we race towards the beaches.
So race up towards Caen. You can see and feel the urgency and the concentration on the faces of the riders here moving up to the front. But look at the movement all of the time. If you look at a peloton like this, a pack, you could see riders moving up around the outside, round the right-hand side, round the left-hand side. And what happens is riders in the middle, if they're not experienced enough, get squashed down through the middle of that pack. And then what you have to do is you've got to move up around the outside again. If you are a good bike rider and you have not got any fear, you can hold your place in the middle of that arrowhead there, and nobody will come and bother you. And a good tip, if you have the nerve to do it, is to ride in the middle of that arrowhead and put your hands in the middle of your handlebars away from the brakes, and that scares a lot of people. I know that because I used to do it.
Well, we're inside 3 minutes for the first time for a long, long time today now at 25 kilometers, just on 15 miles to run. Inside 3 minutes, and this battle will probably be 25 kilometers to go now for the two leaders. Well, 25 kilometers, 2:53 is the gap, and the green jersey of McEwen, the yellow jersey of Bonen back in that peloton and ready shortly to do battle. Well, as the riders continue towards the beaches of Normandy, tomorrow we inch our way a little bit further west, and don't forget, the Tour de France coverage will always continue right to Paris on OLN. It'll be stage 6 tomorrow as we head towards a Vitré, and 1 more flat stage before that very important individual time trial. Don't miss our live coverage. It begins tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and then you catch our enhanced prime time show, which comes to you at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific timing. Follow the journey of the men who will be king, though, through July 23rd, only on OLN. Well, at the moment, the sprinters will be thinking of today, not tomorrow. They'll be thinking now, how are they going to close 2 minutes 46 seconds down? Just under 15 miles to race the line, or 24 kilometers to go. Take a look at the faces of these guys. They are now pushing the levels up to 100% as they try to lift this peloton up to 50, 55 kilometers an hour, 30, 35 miles an hour. Those two riders now are scampering towards the finish. They know what's going on behind. They've been in this situation on a daily basis, but normally in the pack rather than up ahead. So they know how those guys are really chasing. But they still will hold a lingering hope they will be there before the others in Caen. Time is running out for everybody as we approach the finish. And let's hope that they stay away. But it's looking slim. We'll take a quick break and rejoin us. Welcome back to the Tour de France status quo. The pilots at the front of the peloton are now riding to their limits to try and close down this gap. We're on a nice stretch of road at the moment as we run into the last 12 miles of today's stage of the Tour de France, but there's still 2.5 minutes to make up. Vyacheslav Yekimov His power's gone up from 150 to 402, and we've seen him just near the front of the peloton. His heart's rising too, but not by a lot, at 145 beats per minute. Well, that looks like it's 20 kilometres to go now, Paul. Just 12 miles to race to the finish. They've still got a nice lead at 2:28.
Just holding on to 2:28, but you can almost see the pressure in Samy Demoulin's pedaling style. He's rocking the shoulders a fraction now. These riders went out on this long escapade hoping to build themselves up 10 or 15 minutes and hoping that the main field would get it wrong. But when you see a main field strung out in an angry mood like that, you know the sprinters want to have their day again. It is very unfair sometimes. You've got to support the guys who go out on the breakaway. You want the guys in the breakaway to win. But the men who are the sprinters, the men who are the gladiators of the road here at the Tour de France, they want to have their day as well, because they know they are going to get sent to the back of the peloton once we go to the Pyrenees and the Alps.
Well, these roads are the favourite roads of the Dutch and the Belgians, with the echelons forming now, indicating a slight head to crosswind. The strong men can mix it. The boys who are in that tail end of the whip, they are really just hanging on here, hoping that somebody slows down so they can move up a little bit. The gap is coming down pretty quickly now. 2:18, inside 20 kilometres to go. This is where you really struggle here now. Right at the back, 151 there, Sandy Cassar. He's the boy that was knocked off on the climb of the Cowberg by a spectator, and he looks as though he's struggling here.
This is not a good place to be. What's happening here is the wind is coming over from the right-hand side, pushing the riders down into the gutter. If you've got a little bit of strength, the best thing to do is to move up over to the right-hand side of the peloton. As you can see there, a lot of movement over on that right-hand side. The most dangerous point is about 2/3 of the way down on the left-hand side of the road, because that's where riders are scrambling to stay out of the wind and very often taking risks. Add that and compound it with a bit of fatigue, and that's how you get accidents.
Well, these two are just getting on with the job in hand here, trying to get into a little village and out of sight on this long exposed highway. The wind is now very strong, but because of the way they run into Caen, they'll switch around a bit. They will pick up a bit of tailwind as well as cross and head. And it's a headwind approach right up to the line. Tongue fully out there. Peloton still at 2:14 and 11 miles left to ride.
Guys looking a lot more urgent now. Look at the face, look at the concentration on those two leaders. They now realize they've got to push it up to 98% maximum to try and survive. 2 minutes and 15 seconds is the official race radio time, crackling over at the moment at the front end of the main field. All of those riders from Crédit Agricole thinking about Thor Hushovd, thinking about that little bit of revenge. It's amazing how a bit of revenge can just spur a rider on that fraction more.
Well, 5 kilometres, they recouped 45 seconds. Now, if they don't go quicker, they're not going to catch them.
Well, I still feel that they might. There's still the possibility of the sprinters having their day once again. But I've noticed a change in the pedaling style of these riders. In the early part of a breakaway, when you go out like this, you try and ride at about 80% of your maximum. You know you've got to conserve a little bit of energy for the final few kilometres. Oh, did you just see Schroeder just sitting up there, the back starting to ache now. They've been riding along, basically the two of them locked together since they formed this breakaway, using a massive gear, and at this stage in the game you start to feel that little bit of ache coming into the lower part of your back, having been pushing those pedals for almost 4.5 hours in the saddle.
There's been revitalization taking place at the front here, because they came together. Now they're strung right out again, so somebody has come to the front from one of the teams with some fresh legs. Here, lost in amongst the cars are the two leaders. A lot of work, most of the work I think being done by Samuel Dumoulin. He's a man of Normandy, this rider. He won here the Route d'Adelaide in March. He has won the Tour of Normandy. He's not a big winner in the true sense of cycling. He's finished his 3 Tours de France he's ridden before, though. Never abandoned. He is a very strong little rider. And now he's desperate to get to that finish and continue his love affair with this state as he races now. And the same with Bjorn Schroeder, still trying to give all of his effort here. Milram should have come here with the fastest sprinter in the world, Alessandro Petacchi. Wasn't to be, because Petacchi had a very serious knee injury, and he's just been given permission now to ride his bike again.
60 days off the bike for Alessandro Petacchi. Smashed his kneecap in the Tour of Italy before the race even left the Belgian part of the world, which is where it started for its first 4 days before then moving down into Italy. I think devastated Alessandro Patacchi with that. He's going to have a long, hard fight back. We'll see him, I think, towards the end of the season, participating in races like, of course, the Vuelta a España. But really, with all of the top sprinters here, Phil, this is where he really would have wanted to be.
Garate coming up through now. Look at the face on this man. He's been up here all day for Tom Bonan. As this Cedric Vasseur has taken over, is it Tanguy? Vasseur, yeah, he's doing the same. And now look at the arguments going on behind, saying, hey, come on, give us a hand. We're not going to catch these guys today. They've got one over on us at the moment.
Cadel Evans not far from the front either, being attentive.
Oh, there's a crash right in the middle.
There you go, and it's difficult to see who went down there. It looks like a Discovery
jersey. It is a Discovery rider.
It's number 4 who's gone down. It's Egoy Martinez, the man who was in the breakaway yesterday. Overall. Well up in the overall classification. Very hard crash. You see, you have to be attentive. You've got to be at the front. Mechanics up alongside him. And it was here at this point here, there was a split in the field. There's 1 or 2 riders. He just touched the wheel of the rider in front of him, who was an Euskaltel Euskadi rider. And maybe that might have even been one of his teammates from last year.
Well, this, I think, was an awkward fall because the way he turned in the air and landed on his side, Gerard Porte, the doctor, is immediately with him. But this isn't looking good here for a restart.
There's Dirk de Mol, the team manager, up alongside the mechanic, just making sure everything is put back together. Dr. Porte is picking him up. Gerard Porte in the white shirt there has picked up so many professional bike riders, and sadly to see there the red number on the back of Egoy Martinez, the most aggressive bike rider of yesterday's stage, climbed up to 5th overall. He won't get back into the main field now, Phil. It's going to be much too fast, but I wonder if he'll be able to finish the stage.
Well, that's the important thing now. Forget his 5th place overall, but get him to the finish so they can look at him tonight and get him back on the road tomorrow. A very valuable team member, Egoy, of Team Discovery.
Well, that's the important thing to note as well, because Team Discovery, or US Postal, as they were before, have always prided themselves in taking a maximum number of riders to Paris. It was always Lance Armstrong's aim to finish with a full team of 9.
Well, that accident happened at 10 miles to go there as we look down on Zidane, the man who did so well for France in soccer last night. This is a big tragedy for Team Discovery at the moment. Egoy Martinez up to 5th yesterday, on the floor today. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Tour de France. These are no ordinary people. The man blowing the trumpet or the cornet in the middle there is Thierry Marie, who was once a great prologue rider of the Tour de France. I think he won it on 3 occasions. He also held one of the records for the longest lone breakaways in this very region. He's retired from the sport now as we get down to the current stars of the Tour de France. And no further news yet on Egoy Martinez coming to us on Race Radio, but we saw him fall and we think he got back on his bike, but we don't know that, as these 2 riders have a lead now of 1:26. Oh, there's confirmation. Well, Paul, as far as we know, Egoy Martinez has got back on his bike. He's being escorted by Pavel Padrinos at the back, so he should come home to the finish.
Well, there he is alongside the team doctor's car. And
don't see Padrinos, but still.
Well, Padrinos will be riding just in front. The doctor will have helped him out quite a bit there. He was pretty banged up there, and the doctor's got him looked after quite quickly. He's got him bandaged up, giving him a little bit of a drink. These doctors are pretty impressive guys. They work on the road. They're working here at 35 miles an hour to keep the rider nice and safe, to keep him in the bike race. He went down hard. Padrinos is probably riding just in front of him there, but he's got to get himself back into contact with this group, Phil, if he's going to stay in the top 5.
Well, he can't hang on to that car for too long because the referee's got to allow so much, but then will penalise. Now we've got Salvatore Camesso come up to the front.
Padrinos was actually in the main field. I saw number 6 at the back of the pack there, so he's probably waiting to see whether or not his teammate is going to come between 20 and 30 seconds off the back, and then he'll get information from Johan Brunel. Then he'll drop back and pace his teammate back into the main field. But very difficult to do when the hammer is down like this.
Well, they couldn't be down any harder right now. It's 11 kilometres to go, 1:15. This is going to be a very tight finish today. Those 2 boys up front won't have lost complete hope yet.
They won't. They will try and survive. These false flats on the outskirts of Cologne make it very difficult to keep the pace high. The board is up alongside them, 1 minute and 20 seconds. They'll do the calculation in their heads. They've got They don't need to have computers, because these men have computers in their heads. They know how to calculate the time. They know how to calculate the average speed. They know what speed the main field is going to do behind them, and they know that right now at 10 kilometers to go, they have got a slight chance of winning.
10 kilometers, 6 miles. Stick to the guns, boys. There is a chance you might beat the sprinters today as they race now. It's been a very hard day for them because they've averaged 42 kilometers now, and it's virtually down to these two riders because they went away at 20 kilometers, and we're now running into the last 10 of the day. So 195 kilometers so far, they have been in the lead.
They'll start to feel the pain digging in. The only thing that will alleviate the pain is the fact that they'll think they can steal the victory today away from the sprinters. They'll hope to survive, but you know, the sprinters now can see the distance between them. They can judge the amount of effort they've got to do. The blue and pink jerseys moving to the front there are Team Lamprey. They're looking after their sprinter Daniele Benati here this afternoon. He's a man who's been pretty consistent. There's the 10 kilometer to go banner, 6.2 miles to go.
We're under the 10 kilometers to go banner for the two leaders. The gap is 63 seconds. The peloton is bringing them into target range, but can they bring them down? Because as we race towards Caen here, they are still showing no signs of giving up in this effort. Huge effort being made here by Bjorn Schrauder of the Milran team, and the same, of course, must be said of Samuel Dumoulin. These two riders earning the cheers of the Norman people as the Tour de France now heads into Caen.
Fast run into town this afternoon. Inside of the last 4 kilometers, there's a number of sweeping bends. There's a very sharp bend at 2 kilometers to go. A right-hander, then the riders will go right alongside the hippodrome. It's very open there, very windy, and these guys will be looking over their shoulders now, wondering whether or not they'll stay clear.
Looking down at the peloton as they continue to dodge the obstacles in the center of the road. Inside a minute now, 57 seconds is the gap. Well, this has yo-yoed a bit today, but it looks at last it might be coming back. Something else that yo-yos, it's a ball, so watch out for this one coming up on OLN. World Team Tennis will be with you shortly with the stars, Venus Williams, Top Martin, Martina Hingis, and indeed Pete Sampras. This all starts on Sunday, July the 16th, 11:30 a.m. with the Newport Breakers, taking on the 5-time tennis team champions, which are Sacramento Capitals. World Team Tennis on OLN, presented by Advanta. Back with the riders on the tour. Drive on now. Total concentration on these teams. Objective 1, to get those two riders back in the fold. Objective 2 for the teams with sprinters, to find their sprinters and launch them into orbit in the last half kilometre of the day. And it's all going to happen in the next 8 kilometres or so, because we're closing in after more than 5 hours in the saddle, and these two riders have spent 4 hours 50 minutes of it ahead of the riders in the Tour de France today. Massive crowds now. The Normands, by the way, the home of the great Jacques Anquetil, love their cycling. And in the old days, when Anquetil was up against Lewis and Bobet, it was Normandy versus Brittany, which are the two big competitive departments in this part of France. These two boys, though, are friends as they try to race towards the finish on rival teams. Will it be the sprinters' day? It's a bit shaky at the moment, but I suspect it might be, and we'll certainly be finding out when we come back after the break, because it's eyes down for the end of stage 5. See you in a moment. Welcome back. The peloton here is thinning out. The riders are now in desperate straits here to catch up with the two leaders who have led since the 20th kilometre. Look at the gap. 20 seconds it is. There's still 3.5 miles to race. In theory, this race is going to come together almost in sight of the line. And there's a little bit of panic in the main field today. They thought for a while that they had misjudged it. Up on the right now, Eric Zabel's team is bringing him to the fore. This is going to be a big battle of the sprinters here in Caen. 16 seconds. There's Stuart O'Grady as well, nursing his broken number 4 vertebrae, but he doesn't care. They're all in pain right now, everybody in this peloton. The leaders are under 5 kilometres to go. They've led for 195 kilometres. They deserve the victory. I'm afraid they're not going to get it. 15 seconds is the gap, and the charge is well and truly on now. There's the peloton under that same banner, 3 miles or 5 kilometres from the line. 14 seconds the gap. The team of Daniela Benatti is now taking them through. 13 seconds, still the gap, 2.9 miles to go. As we continue the chase down with Milram driving at the moment. So Zabel, well, let's hope that Zabel doesn't have a flat tire in the running now, Paul, because his team is bringing up to the front in the rear. They've got no choice. They know that the young man on Zabel's team here, I'm afraid his mileage is numbered now.
Well, the official gap coming across from race radio is 12 seconds, but that's really just not so important for the riders because the peloton can see them. The mouse is about to be taken in by the cat here, but you have to still keep the concentration at the front end of the main field, keep the organization, make sure that no late-minute bursts come out of the main field. But for these two riders, Phil, I think now they know it's all over. Dumoulin, though, doesn't want to give up.
No, and why should he? But he's over. They're right onto the North Sea coastline here now, and that they've got them in their sights. Remember that the wind at the moment is slightly favourable, but they'll turn against it to come up for the finish. Schroeder looks over his shoulder. It's a horrible feeling.
Oh, there's a crash, another crash gone down there, just in the middle.
Somebody's touched wheels. 197 kilometres they've been away, and this is another crash. Concerning here, looks like Van Summeren has gone down on the left here. A Milram rider is also down, Agri Turbel.
It is so dangerous at the front end because you've got a certain amount of space of the riders at the front end of the peloton, and what is happening is you've got the riders who want to be up there in the overall classification, mixing it in with the sprinters. That's where the crash happened. You see the reaction immediately. Everybody moves over to the left-hand side. That causes great confusion in the run into the finish.
When Summeren is down, I thought for a moment it was David Zabriskie. I don't think it is Zabriskie who's gone down with him. This is Van Summeren remounting, his teammate asking him, well, they'll just get up and ride to the finish now. Their day is done. And as we get into 1.7 miles or so to go now, just a handful of kilometres, 3, and we race up now. Big Magnus Backstedt drives on now. Can he get Luca Paolini into a surprise win of the day? Milram over in the light blue, looking for Eric Zabel.
Eric Zabel will be moving up through the middle. I haven't seen Robbie McEwen, but you can count your bottom dollar. Robbie McEwen is right in there with the mix, waiting to come out at the last possible moment. There was the yellow helmet. You just see it every now and again. The dark yellow helmet is that of Tom Boonen. He is right on the tail of his teammates, and this time, Phil, he's got a couple of teammates. That Magnus Backstedt over on the right-hand side. I said, Wolf, that's enough for me. I'm going back now. Leave it up to the other guys at the front end of the main field. Now, it looks as if Quick-Step have got the power at the front, but it isn't Quick-Step. It's Milram wrapping it up for Robbie McEwen, for Tom Boonen, and, of course, the man on the front is doing it for Eric Zabel.
We are scorching down the wrong way in a one-way street here. We're all going the right way, though, at 2.2 kilometres to go now. The rider on the front keeping the pace as high as possible, hoping that his teammates are looking after Eric Zabel as they make that sharp right-hand corner, and this is where we see the corners now. If you're not near the front, your chance of winning for the day are over, and that's the end of the effort by Milram. Now it's up to Leaky Gas to try and lead out Luca Paolini.
This is going to be the best led-out sprint we've had in the Tour so far. Up into 5th position there was Tom Boonen, but right on his wheel there's a very dark green shadow. That is Robbie McEwen. McEwen not far away at all. He knows which wheel he wants to follow here this afternoon. They're going around the corner. Boonen's now dropped down into 5th position. McEwen is right up there. Zabel is not far away either. We're now inside of 2 kilometres to go. The big final burst here for Liquigas. They want to make sure it's into a big long line. They do not want a disorganised sprint like we've had the last couple of days.
Well, there's no way he's going to sprint for 1.3 kilometres here, because it's Bram Tankink, I think, bringing up the rear. They've shut them all down. They've got it. Now Boonen is in a perfect place here at 3/4 of a mile, or just over a kilometre to go. He is third wheel on his 2 teammates. They are positioning the missile to race for the finish at 1 kilometre.
It's still a very long way with just 2 teammates left in front of him. There, the last man to go will be Matteo Tossato. He's the big man who will try and launch Tom Boonen into maximum right up there as well. Jimmy Casper's mixing it with all of them, but the train has been taken over now because Eric Zabel is up into 3rd. Zabel, you know, is an ever consistent man. Thor Hushoff coming up through the middle as well with his lead-out man trying to place himself. McEwen over there on the right-hand side. He's got big head. Stegeman's leading him into the last 400 or 500 metres. Oh, and a touch of wheels again.
Well, into the home straight now. Watch the centre picture. The green jersey's got the perfect lead out. McEwen. Bowden has been washed away once more. Now, is this going to be 3 wins in the first week for Robbie McEwen? He's got the lead out. He's hesitating to attack. It might be a mistake because Bowden's gone over him. And McEwen actually waited down. Big Tom has gone. And watch this. Oscar Freire far left of the picture. This won't go wrong now. Tom Bowden is moving across into the slipstream, being challenged all on the way. We're on the line. It's gone to Oscar Freire. Bowden beaten by the width of his tyre. I don't know why Robbie sat up. He tried to change tack too late, and Oscar Freire has pulled out one of the best sprints of his life there.
Well, that's his second win in a stage at the Tour de France for Oscar Freire, but he is an unbelievably good bike rider. He knows how to time it to perfection. He caught everybody off guard here. He went on a sprint all on his own. McEwen there at this point saw he wasn't going to get it. Tom Boonen was trying. He went to the left, he went to the right, he came up through the middle. I think we will see Tom Boonen just getting himself second place there, but look at this. Oscar Freire, you don't win world championships as many times as this man, Phil, if you can't pull out something special.
Well, that was a superb sprint, and it was a very hard one to actually judge, and you see that Tom paid the price for the headwind. He had 2 teammates left in that last kilometre, but he had to go too early. And I think the same has to be said for Robbie McEwen. It was a very strong headwind finish. You had to get it just right. Oscar Freire, 3 times the world champion, really has delivered a big one for Rabobank this time.
Well, that'll blow away a little bit of the sadness of losing Eric Decker in the Tour. And here's Igor Martinez coming up, Phil. He never remade contact with the main field, and he will drop down a lot in the overall classification. But at least he's in. 1:17 seconds it said on the clock, and at least he will be able to be looked after by the team doctors and the team helpers overnight, and hopefully be able to carry on the road of the Tour de France tomorrow.
Oscar Freire gets his 5th win of the season, but that was by far and away his best. Just before he came to the Tour de France, he won a stage of the Tour de Suisse. He's a man who's been often bothered by injury and sickness, but when he comes good, he comes good. He's been threatening, he's been showing form all the time. He wins the race at the moment, with Bowden getting 2nd place officially on the stage. It must have been about a millimetre out of it there, and McEwen, well, right up on the inside.
But for Tom Boonen crossing the line in 2nd place, Phil, that's going to mean he'll increase his lead in the overall classification over everybody apart from Oscar Freire. Now it looks as if that's Dave Zabriskie coming in there as well, so he's lost a little bit of time. I think he was involved in that crash. We'll have to try and figure out just exactly where the crash was, because we do have the 3-kilometre rule. I think they might have just been outside, but look how far back Oscar Freire is coming from. He's about 10th position here, sees the gap. Watch this acceleration.
Incredible.
Boom. You know, when you're a sprinter, you have to take the gap, you have to take the risk, and here he got the jump on everybody else. If he'd gone a fraction of a second later, Tom Boonen would have been the easy winner of the stage, but Freire got the jump on him, and Tom Boonen just could not come back, although he kept going all the way up to the finish line. When Tom Boonen gets that big gear of his going, he really is something special, but he can do nothing to match the former world champion Oscar Freire, who wins by a clear bicycle length.
And 5th place only for Robbie McEwen today. He'll be disappointed with that, I think. So, as we're looking now at downtown in Caen, let's have a look at the final stage results, thanks to Honda today. And there they are. Oscar Freire, 5:18.50 at last gets a stage win. He's won before, of course, in the Tour. Bowden 2nd. Inaki Sasi producing a superb sprint there for Euskaltel. David Kopp and Robbie McEwen given 5th, all in the same time, of course. Of the sprinters, Balan got up this time for Lampre. Hushoft only 7th for him. Zabel 9th, and the top 10 completed by the man we spoke about earlier, Bernard Eisel. Further down, Paolini, they didn't really get it right. Leaky gas in the lead out for him. Brochard 12th. Jimmy Casper, the winner of stage 1 there as well. Looking right down the list here too, Christophe Laurent propping up the top 20. He was the rider in the long breakaway yesterday, so he's recovered well. Well, this has been a tremendous end to today's stage Tour de France. Always sorry for the breakaways when they get caught. But Oscar Freire, 3 times a world champion, is back. He's another name to conjure with now as this Tour de France goes on. We'll be back too in a few moments with all of our wrap-up situations with the podiums and the interviews. We're looking down on the capital city of the area of Normandy in northern France. We're on the beaches here today in Caen. We have just seen a real sporting battle enacted on the roads just outside here, and a great win for Oscar Freire. 3 times a world champion. He always surprises. He can win in many ways, but when he wants to, Paul, he can really sprint.
I tell you what, he came back from an awful long way back. Just have a look at the way he did this. He took everybody by surprise. Everyone was sprinting over on the opposite side of the road, but for Oscar Freire, he saw the gate and the door open right in front of him, and he said to everybody else, sorry guys, I'm going to take that. I've got the jump on everybody here.
Well, Tom Boonen at last has found his sprinting legs. I don't quite know what happened to Robbie McEwen there. He suddenly was faced with leading out for the win, realised that win was too strong, so he's looking for another wheel to catch up on, and Oscar Freire thought, right, this is the chance. Up the outside and go. All right, well, let's have a look then at the Michelob Ultra overall classification. As it stands, slight changes because Tom Boonen, with his win, his second place bonus, goes out 13 seconds ahead of Michael Rogers now. Freire up into 3rd slot. George Hincapie down to 4th, but they're equal on time. It doesn't matter. Torhush off there in 5th. Further down, Robin McEwen goes down a little bit to 6th. No bonuses for him today. Savadelli in 7th, Landis 8th. The boys that matter, like Savadelli and Landis, they're waiting for the time trial on Saturday. Vladimir Karpik, Sergei Gonchar. Gonchar's a good time trialist as well. Continuing down, Cadell Evans, another good time trialist. He sits in 12th. Christophe Moreau, David Miller is riding extremely well in his first tour back after 2 years out. He's 14th. And right down to the top 20, we've got Bobby Julich there of CSC at 37 seconds in 20th place. So this has been an incredible tour so far. Let's have a look again. Look at Freire break on the right.
Everybody in the race was sprinting down the left-hand side, and just for a fraction of a second, it happens in a sprint sometimes, as a door opens in front of you. Oscar Freire saw that and said, I'm going to go for a long one. And with that first acceleration, he got the gap already on Tom Boonen. Boonen has got the big turbo diesel going in, but it hasn't started to whistle, and he starts to die just before the line, where Oscar Freire continues in his acceleration and crosses the line with almost a full bicycle length advantage. That's what you have to do. That's what a sprinter is all about, Phil. You've got to wait. When the presentation happens, take it.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's the way to win a sprint, and Tom Boonen will be kicking himself. So will Bob Roll. He picked Robin McEwen today, I believe. Okay, guys, back to you, Bob and Al.
Okay, Phil and Paul, you know, they're taking some shots at the Saab yellow jersey, but as I remember, Oscar Freire was on everybody's radar a couple of days ago, but not necessarily today. You know, early on, Jimmy Casper surprised at the sprint. Today, Oscar Freire, but maybe no one should have been surprised by Oscar.
No, I think nobody should have been surprised. Robbie McEwen, very dominant so far, but when the sprinter is on his form and it's his day, he's the fastest man on the day, and it was a great sprint by Freire, launching way early, and he had a tremendous amount of opportunity. It was wide open, a big boulevard, and he had that little window right there next to the barriers. If the lead-out man for McEwen, Steegmans, had pulled off a little bit further to his right, well, then Freire would have had to brake, and we would have had an entirely different result. Freire taking the gamble to go on the other side of the road, and it paid off big time on today's stage.
There are long stretches in a stage like this where nothing seems to be happening. That's a battle for you as a viewer and for the cyclists themselves, because they have to battle against losing their concentration for just a split second. When that happens, you can easily crash, and it was another day of many mishaps. Here's one rider overreacting perhaps to something that happened in front of him, so he locks the front wheel, and down he goes for Saunier Duval.
These pile-ups take up the whole road. There are narrow roads, a helicopter up above, but Moncoutier caught out in that crash.
Igor Martinez of Discovery. Maybe he got knocked, who knows, but it was a weird split in the road. Those happen all the time as well. And we're not sure of his status for the rest of this race, but he really looked badly shaken.
That was a hard crash for Martinez. In the break one day and down on the ground the next. Very tough race. Look at this crash right near the front. Sometimes even in the safety zone, that's not enough. And a big pile up here with just a few kilometers to go, just before the catch of our two breakaways. Look at it there. Hard crash into the dirt, onto the trees, and the curb right there. It's just so dangerous. You got to stay right at the front. Even sometimes that doesn't help.
And I don't know if it affected the run toward the line for Robbie McEwen, but I thought I saw two Divinum and Lotto guys in there, and any support would have been better support than he got, but he was not part of the mix.
Yes, absolutely. Very bad luck for McEwen. Didn't have his lead-out man. but that's the breaks in bike racing.
And Tom Boonen continues to look for that stage win to really cement his status on the yellow jersey. Hasn't come yet, but his status as a premier sprinter, that remains unchanged. For Rabobank, some good news here as Oscar Freire takes the stage.
Bad luck with the loss of Decker, but now good luck. Oscar Freire picking the right side of the road and having the legs to do it.
So let's check out the standings. The stage winner, Oscar Freire of Rabobank. And now we go to the stage 5 results, brought to you by Honda, the power of dreams. Oscar Freire has been so close in so many of these sprints. It's got to be very rewarding to know he stayed with it and finally gets some reward. Thor Hushovd, part of the mix in the end. Eric Zabel as well, but these sprints are eluding Zabel, and the tour's not getting any younger.
No, absolutely not. Zabel barely in the top 10, had a flat tire yesterday. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
All right, now another stage tomorrow as we go back to the podium. We're looking forward to the Saturday individual time trial. That could be huge. And there you see the man in the world champion rainbow jersey about to be adorned yet again in Le Maillot Jaune, Tom Boonen.
Tom Boonen pulling on day number 3, overall lead. That is so huge in his career. It was hard fought today. He got up there, did the jersey well with second place on the stage, got a little bit of a time bonus as well, so he extends his advantage slightly over Mick Rogers. Another day in yellow for Tom. He would love to get a stage win to go along with the leader's jersey.
Okay, so in the overall picture, the big picture, brought to you by Michelob Ultra, Tom Boonen still in yellow, Michael Rogers there for T-Mobile, Oscar Freire, and then George Hincapie, who's one of those yellow jersey in Paris dreamers, on down the list. His teammate Paolo Salvadelli is still right there. Floyd Landis still exactly where he wants to be, looking to make big damage in Saturday's individual time trial. That's a must-watch with us on OLN in this year's edition of the Tour de France. Matthias Kessler came through and won a stage. Cadel Evans, he's also right there at 32 seconds.
Cadel Evans having a great tour. Zabriskie in 16th. Andres Kloden, Bobby Julich rounding out the top 20, another American for the Team CSC.
So again, Bob, in the overall jersey story that we continue to follow here, the yellow jersey story, did you see anything today that changes any opinion or advances a thought?
No, there was very little to report on today's yellow jersey battle. Tom Boonen has it for now. That's going to change dramatically after the time trial. Phonak very much in front of the bike race. Floyd Landis pedaling those small gears. It seemed like he was even under less stress than he has been. Tiny little gears, just spinning him like a sewing machine right at the front of the peloton. He's riding great.
Robin McEwen remains in the green jersey, as well he should, because he's got 2 stage wins. Very impressive as well. I don't know exactly what happened there other than Freire just having huge legs coming down the streets here in Cannes.
I have to agree with you. Freire was unstoppable today the way Robbie was yesterday. Robbie getting more points. He was 5th on the stage. Blanked me out in our yellow jersey competition, but I'm not too worried about that. Robbie always a solid pick in the sprint finishes.
Quick thought of the teams that can challenge for the yellow. Discovery's a big deal. Igor Martinez was part of the break yesterday. If in fact he has lost to the team, how big of a loss is that?
I think he'll be back in the race. It didn't indicate that he was in too much trouble at all. He was pedaling well back up into the group. Lost some time, but he'll still be there for the team.
That's going to do it for today's Stage 5 of the 2006 Tour de France. We look forward to Stage 6 tomorrow. And again, I remind you, the individual time trial on Saturday. The sprinters had their say, but a new name bursts onto the scene. Oscar Freire for Rabobank claims their first stage of the Tour. Live tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern Time and 5:30 Pacific. Enhanced coverage every night in prime time, even the off days, 8 and 9 out west. Here's our counterclockwise trip around France, brought to you by AMD. What does this race have in store for us tomorrow as we leave Cannes and head west toward Brittany?
This is going to be another sprinter stage. The wind is blowing. We're not going into the wind. We're going crossways to it. This could be a very tough stage, 189 kilometers. If we have the big crosswinds that can happen, watch for a big battle for the GC to ensue. 3 sprints and 1 Category 3 climb.
With Phil Liggett, Paul Sherwen, Frankie Andreu, Craig Hummer, Robbie Ventura, and Bob Roll, I'm Al Troutwig. For more race coverage of the Tour, simply go to OLNTV.com. There's so much there if you love this race as it moves along across northern France. Providing us with the picturesque images of this part of the world, the colors of the peloton, the mishaps along the way, the breakaways that don't break away for good, and the dangers that lie around every turn. Tom Boonen remains the man in yellow, Robin McEwen the man in green. In the days ahead, things will change. Of that, we're certain. This is the Tour on OLN.